All right, everyone, welcome to Political Head Trauma. I'm hoping the sound is good because we've got to bundle through OBS today for all sorts of fun reasons. But this is where if Head Trauma had a podcast, it would sound like this. We're kicking off right now, hot and heavy. We have Natalie Cline on, who is currently USBE number 9, right? District
Correct.
9. Do they call it the district in
District
the
9. Uh-huh.
Okay. And we also have Monica Wilbur, who is running to be our representative. We are in District 10 out here in Tooele. And these ladies are running headlong into the fight to, I think best way to put it would be save our children.
Protect our kids.
Yeah,
preserve their innocence.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you guys have a chance to like and subscribe us on YouTube if you are. And also, please follow our page if you haven't yet at Political Head Trauma on X as well as on Facebook. And we'd like to thank the Main Street Media Group who will be joining us shortly with a call. So if you have any interest in commenting, do so live, or the phone number to call in will be on shortly. And we want to hear from you.
Your mic was off the whole time.
That's awesome. Thank you to our producer, Jared.
Yes.
Not tech savvy.
I'm sitting there going, there is.
Too echoey.
There it is. You showed up.
Anyway, like and subscribe, guys. We're really excited about our guests today. Both of these ladies are tirelessly fighting.
They're taking arrows for us.
It's true.
They're taking the hits. And I don't know. I'm impressed. I'm very impressed. And I think it'll be interesting because, Natalie, you've been kind of manning the bulwarks by yourself for a while. Right?
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. But I've been at the board now for just over 3 years and fighting with all I've got, day and night and day, helping parents. And there's no other people on the board that are really helping you, is there? There are different individuals on the board. Some are very hard left and pushing the agenda hard. Others,
what, on an education board?
Right. Oh. But then you've got others who are kind of the mushy middle that don't always understand, I think, what is happening, because I do so much research, and Monica and I both do a tremendous amount of research about education from the national and global levels, and the education associations and entities that, we read these long, arduous white papers that nobody would want to read. If you want to know what's really going on, read the white papers that companies put out, that's the best place they can hide it. Right. Because they know nobody's going to want to read that because it's just long and it can seem boring until you know what it is you're looking for.
Yeah. And communists, they really write slogs.
Yes,
they do. And Monica, you're seeking a position on the school board.
That I am.
Then we would have 2 people up there going through this stuff. Because I see it. There are a lot of hard left in education, period.
Oh, yeah.
The schools, they've adopted, what is it, Paulo Freire's model, and that has bled through. You won't find hardly any teachers, maybe a rare gym teacher or a history teacher that teaches from the heart, not from a lesson book, that aren't hard left. You just won't, because that's been indoctrinated into the teaching schools.
Right.
There was a book written, what was that lady's name? I got the book in the other room, but she wrote about the problem with our ed schools, and she was calling this out in the late 80s. She discovered this. So right. It's bled in all the way now, but to have 2 people in there fighting, I think that'd be great. I've been to at least one of, I think 2 of your presentations now. And you come armed, you come with PowerPoint projections, and they're full. You're like, this is happening. And you break it down. It's not all one thing happening down the line. It's like, one school district will have National Department of Education taking it over, and another school will have the state taking it over, and different things. And so it's shocking when you see it. So maybe it's on purpose. It makes it hard to come up with a plan of attack.
Well, that's something that Monica and I have really honed in on, is the systems takeover, so that, even if you have pockets of, where there are good schools and good teachers, the system itself has been taken over, the entire education system. And so everything comes down from the top, and they've set up the system to be controlling, so that you can't really get away from doing
good teachers' hands get tied.
Right. They call it implementing with fidelity. That's what's all throughout the literature, is that they expect teachers to implement these programs and policies and pedagogies with fidelity. So they've put a system in place that creates that accountability for teachers, so that it's hard for them to not go along without suffering the repercussions. And they've also brought in, the system has also transformed to be tech-centered, so that the tech is doing most of the teaching, and the teachers are reduced to mere facilitators of tech in large measure, so that this helps the system bypass what they call barriers. In this case, possibly conservative teachers or conservative parents that might otherwise get in the way if the teacher were free to teach the lessons through their own lens, right? So if you've got the tech doing all of the teaching, the teachers oftentimes don't know what is being taught to the student, and the parents certainly don't. And so it's just that's how they overcome a lot of the barriers, so that you're seeing the same problems in maybe conservative Idaho and Utah that you're seeing in more liberal California and New York now, since the takeover of education with tech that largely happened during COVID.
Yeah, this is what I was saying. I think I spoke to you about this, Monica, is I didn't even realize until COVID, when I'm over a shoulder of my child, some of the curriculum and stuff. Now, I consider my kids at school very conservative, and they do listen when we bring up problems or questions with the curriculum. But again, I think it's very mucky and murky where curriculum comes from, who writes it, who approves it. And I was told, we'll go to your state school board because we're a charter. And so I'm just wondering, do you guys sit down and approve curriculum and books that are in schools, or is that done around you by bureaucrats?
Well, I was listening to the Standards and Assessment Committee meeting this morning, and where they create the standards that the schools have to, the teachers have to teach to the standards, and the assessments are aligned to the standards. But one thing came out in that meeting that, it was very telling, as far as, they were trying to put in more detailed information in the standards, and they said, no, that's how it's taught. We're just telling them what they have to teach, and it's up to the teacher how they teach it. Meaning, and what they were discussing, they didn't want the details added that were trying to be put in, because it would not allow the teacher to teach through the lens that they want the teacher to teach through, right? So you can put things in the standards that are that look fairly concrete, but not really. There's a lot of subjectivity added to that, and that's to allow teachers to teach to the standards while also doing it through a lens that parents wouldn't be okay with. So what's on paper looks okay, but how it's taught, the lens through which it's taught, it becomes the problem.
Well, this is something that I think is a double-edged sword, because we don't want teachers to go in and have to be robots. We want them to teach and to be themselves, and to use, because certain teachers get to some kids and certain teachers don't. There's certain teaching ideas, and certain teachers inspire and others don't.
Right.
So
it gets back to the teaching colleges, like he said, like, traditionally, that's how we would want it, is the teacher allowed to teach it the way that meets the needs of the students, right?
That
And that's how,
inspires and-
right. That's what we want. But at the same time, you have teachers that have gone through all of the teacher colleges
You have
and
activists.
all the professional development trainings that teach them to do it through an activist lens.
And
so
it's by
then
design.
how do you fix that problem? Because we want teachers to have that autonomy to be able to teach to the needs of the student, but we don't want teachers teaching through a radical lens either. So it kind of puts us in a pickle, right?
Well, and to add to what Natalie said there, there are this activist angle that I think a lot of these teaching colleges, I went through a teaching college and I didn't realize it at the time because I was kind of young, but you go back and you look
Is
at the
day
texts.
one, they you gotta snap that
Dye
fist
your
up
hair
just
blue.
right.
Right, yeah, learn how to snap the fist.
Dye your hair blue. Everyone's got to have a different color hair.
Thumb over all the fingers, not crossing many of them, just
We're
over
immature,
the
so please tolerate us.
I missed that day, so I don't think I got that one down. And
Okay.
but there were the texts, and if you look at the texts, they were teaching teachers at that time to look at things through. At that point, it was phrased as a multicultural lens. It's the same thing as DEI today.
Yes.
It's absolutely the same thing, and they want you to basically, not only. They're not just teaching you how to implement the curriculum, but there's also this idea of hidden curriculum and null curriculum. So hidden curriculum is it's what the teacher really is trying to teach, but using that open or transparent curriculum in order to do it. So for instance, here we'll give the kids a poem about inner city violence. And now we use that as a platform or a springboard for, now let's talk about economic inequality.
So that's I've heard it called praxis.
Yes.
That's we're not actually teaching that, but everything they teach has a subliminal message of
Was that Biden?
of kind of inequality we need to pay attention to.
Sure.
It's DEI.
Redistribution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Understand your privilege.
So we're in the
Yeah,
long
yeah.
march through the institutions. I get, we're in the end of the long march,
Yes. Yes. And it's, and then you have the null curriculum and so you have the hidden curriculum, and the null curriculum is what is taught by what you decide to not teach. So it's what you deliberately leave out of the curriculum. And we're seeing that happen with, I believe, classical works. We're seeing that happen with foundational historical knowledge. It's just not there. They say here, the instruction should be inquiry based. Teach the kids based on whatever questions they ask you. Well, if you don't have a foundation to base, your questions on, you're going to be asking questions like, can I just watch a TikTok video about this? Like, you're not, you're not going to be asking like, what was the Treaty of Versailles? You're not going to
question your science teacher about the global warming catastrophe they're warning you about.
Yes.
And why your grandma's going to die in Florida in 5 years. This is real. It's all catastrophic climate change, and it's been taught to them since they were a youth.
Oh, yeah.
So they're just right on board with it, and they're not critically thinking, hey, why do we have more trees? And when carbon is higher, doesn't that mean oxygen is cleaner because trees eat off carbon? Like, what is this photosynthesis you taught us years ago?
Right.
Yeah. Kids don't have that critical thinking taught to them. They're just shoved down this information as fact instead, because the curriculum is teaching them this.
Yeah.
And they're not inspired to ask. They're just told.
Yes.
Unless they get a good teacher that still does the curriculum. Look, I'm teaching you this theory of climate change being catastrophic. Here's their evidence, and here's the counter evidence. What are your questions? You got both.
Yeah.
We don't teach that way anymore.
Well, the problem is the assessments aren't written that way.
Yeah.
And if the teachers have to teach the assessment in order to be able to prove that they're good teachers, then there is no incentive for them to teach them the other side of it. If the assessment only
They're
asks
teaching
them
them to learn
about
to
a
test.
certain
That's it.
ideology. Mhm.
Sure.
And then we're teaching kids that you study, retain the information for tests, you lose the information, you get to college where you study, same thing. And it's just for the now. They're retaining nothing, and they're not getting critical thinking strategy. They're not encouraged to, I don't know, to stand with boldness.
Well, part of the problem is they have digital literacy classes, which is supposed to teach them how to be good digital or global citizens, right? Digital citizens, which whatever that is, means you're beholden to somebody out there in the ether.
I thought it was to teach you how to use like computers
responsibly,
to be digitally
right?
literate.
That's what parents think, right? And they want you to assume your own definition so that you don't actually ask, what do they mean by this? What does the system mean by this? The system means we're going to teach children, students, what sources on the internet to go to for their information.
For facts.
Yes, for facts. What approved sources, right? Reliable sources. And all of these, if you follow any of those curriculums, take you to the liberal media sources.
Of course.
They don't take, so they're only getting one side. And if a student looks up something else, they get docked for not going to an approved site or a credible site. That's digital literacy.
That's insane. My kid was able to take digital literacy or gym, and they chose that. And this whole time, I thought it meant teaching you computer skills and how to use a computer.
Well, and
be literate in digital.
And it also brings in, because in the tech world of education, they're starting to globalize it. They literally have like global classrooms now, like that Facebook has created and Google has created, the Google Classroom. So that's why they're teaching kids about multiculturalism, because they want them in classrooms with kids from all over the world, right? And then collaboration is one of the major things that they're trying to, It used to be that school was about math and science and reading and literature. Now it's about collaboration and critical thinking and creativity. But all of those C words that come straight from the NEA, the National Education Association, and other global entities are about getting kids to sit with a group of diverse students, not just diverse students in their class, meaning from different religions or ethnicities or races or socioeconomic backgrounds or whatever, and sit there, and then they have to collaborate and come together on something. Meaning, Monica and I have a group that we created called Higher Ground, because this collaboration kind of talk is about finding common ground, not in the way we used to think of common ground, but in letting go your convictions, right, and your values and your attitudes and beliefs, and having this new kind of melting pot, which is now what we would have typically called groupthink. It's blind where you acceptance. Don't question anything, and you come together and you water everything down that you believe until you really believe in nothing anymore, and you stand for nothing.
You stand for nothing.
When I shear a sheep,
because you don't want to offend anybody.
I like the sheep to be nice and docile.
So this group, Higher Ground, what is it that you guys do?
Well, first of all, it just started out as a platform for our research. And so we formulated kind of how all these systems are coming together. And I think I discussed it with you guys last time.
Mm-hmm.
You have the social, psychological, and behavioral conditioning. You've got the erasing sexual inhibitions and boundaries. You have controlling outcomes through standardization. You have outsourcing decisions on children to experts. And you have the exploiting children for socioeconomic agendas. And then we also have leveraging government force for compliance.
That's so much.
It's a lot.
Is this an organization that the public can join and assist with, or is this something for teachers? What is it?
It's a website, higherground.work. That's WORK. Yeah. And it's a place where you can go. You can sign up for our newsletter on there to get notifications when we put things out or when we are doing presentations. But mostly it's a place that people can go and get up to speed really quickly on what all of these agendas are. And it's organized in such a way that to help individuals kind of be able to better wrap their heads around it, because it is such a huge
it's
tsunami of systems that are taking over and transforming the education system.
So many parents right now feel helpless. I stood in front of my precinct and I talked about education, and I talked about how it should affect every one of you. I don't care how old you are. How our kids are being educated will affect your future, because they are our next generation.
Yeah.
They decide for us what the value of our lives are. And right now, we're not even teaching human life is valuable. And it's bleeding into the social construct of our kids. And they're not thinking that life is important. Well, you can kill a baby. Okay. You can change your gender. Okay. You can, it's almost like you're shining a bright light on body dysmorphic disorder, anorexia, bulimia, cutters, depression. These are all real serious issues. But if we're going to accept that a child can be a cat in a classroom, then we can accept that being a cutter is just as normal. And let's not focus on helping this child. We're going to sit down and say, no, don't cut there or there, because that could kill you. But cutting here is okay. I mean, we are in a circus world. And these parents, most of them only know what their child tells them because they don't have time and energy to be hyper aware of what's happening in schools.
Right. I mean, we live in a time of moral equivalence, moral relativity. That's exactly what you're describing right there. It's just all choices are valid as long as you consent to whatever it is you're submitting yourself to.
Anarcho-tyranny.
Yeah.
But that's a big word. Most of us moms are like, we can barely afford groceries, so we're taking on a second job. My kid, I hope he did his homework. And
that means you have tyranny without rule of law. You have tyranny where there's no clear-cut laws that you can follow. The laws ebb and flow according to what the tyrannical group wants. So if they want you out of the picture, you're completely down the lines of the laws. If they want you out of the picture for this moment, not for, we'll not write a new law that stays on the books for this moment. We'll bump the laws over to where you cross the line. We'll punish you. And then the laws will just float right back. Just like how all through COVID, you had the BLM and Antifa burning cities to the ground, and all of them skated. Matter of fact, I think it's upwards of like 25 of them now have been paid by the very cities they terrorized. They've been paid by them.
That's
millions. But then you've got J6, and that's terrorism. It's the worst day since Pearl Harbor and since the asteroid hit that killed the dinosaurs. It's awful. We've all got our knees buckle, the back of our heads hit the floor. I need a binky. Look at me in the fetal position. That is where we are. That's anarcho-tyranny. And I hope any of you leftists are watching this or listening to this. Remember, this will be used against you as well.
absolutely.
Oh, well, it's a matter of, if they want you gone, they will find a way.
They will find a way.
If they want to get you, they will. And if they don't, they won't. Right. And the laws, they are written in such a way that they can excuse one and not the other, or they can use soft language to come after. Like, they can use really soft language and weaponize it
Absolutely.
to make it mean
mostly
you did
peacefully.
something horrible. Or they can have really hard language written in and make what you did sound very soft so that they can let you off the hook.
We're seeing this now. We're seeing it. If you're on the right side, and I say the side in power or the popular side with the loud minority, you get excused for the mistakes you make. If you're on the wrong side, the side that has been fighting this other side, who's been standing up and being loud and noisy, you don't get to make mistakes. In fact, you get to be brutalized personally. Your family gets to be attacked. We have seen this, the weaponization of just words. Like he's saying, they're changing definitions, and they're so hypocritical. And on the nation scale, it's so blatant that watching the Biden speech last night was like being waterboarded for an hour.
It was,
I just was like, who wrote this? And how are people thinking this is okay? This
I just want to say,
after lie after lie.
Right.
But they defend it because they've changed the definition of what things mean.
Right.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you don't have inflation. It's only 3%. 3% still up from the inflation you started, but you're taking credit for it being down. Are you kidding me? This is
gaslighting.
a clown world. And you get one person that can do something and it's absolutely horrendous. And yet it just gets ignored because they're playing on the right team.
Right. Well, they've created entirely new, I think, baselines for us. And the goal is to make it so that you can't remember really what normal was. And, and so we're in this constant state of, I think, flux and acting and just reacting, and we've gotten to the point where I think we've lost a lot of our moral moorings, and our.
What?
I know.
And the moral people is the whole way the Constitution works.
Yes.
Without a moral people, it's paper. It's all it is.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. We've lost it.
Yeah.
A lot of this fluctuation, this constant fluctuation, is to scare people into, you see people getting canceled left, right, and center, right? And you don't know what you can say anymore and what you can't without having, the full force of the government come down upon you. So it tends to kill free speech, right? So people are they don't dare say what they really think, right? And people don't dare ask the very questions that need to be asked if we're going to solve problems, right? The society doesn't even have to make a law to make you realize there are certain things you are not allowed to do. And there are certain things you are not allowed to say or ask. Certain things are off limits.
For some people.
Yeah.
Well, and also it's what is okay today will not be okay tomorrow.
Right.
And then once that gets established and everyone conforms, it's the same thing.
It's the fires in 2020.
Yeah.
Not okay, but okay. Into January 6th. Not okay, but you're all going to prison forever.
Well, the communists did the exact same thing. Well, I should say the Bolsheviks, the Mensheviks got killed, but they moved in and then they changed kind of what their rule set was so that they could kill all of their firebrands. And they did. They killed them all.
Yes.
They put them up against the wall and killed them. Now, if you were in the political inside party, like Stalin honestly shouldn't have made it past the post because, he was a bank robber. That was his job for the Bolshevik party before they got into power. He would rob banks. Seriously, folks, look this up. He was a bank robber. He robbed the bank in his own hometown. The guy was poo ground into the tread on your shoes. But
oh my gosh,
he was a bank robber and he shouldn't have made it past the post, but he was reliable and he wasn't a drunk all the time like Russia has they're kind of known for. But anyways, so he made it past the post. But everyone else, all of his supporters, all of his homeboys that robbed the banks with him, they all got put against the wall by the good communist, I guess, old Lenin. He killed them all. And then Stalin moved in and killed all the rest that were, next to him. Right. And they kept doing that. But that's the changing of the laws. And they did it with writ of law. They would change the laws as they went along.
We're seeing it right now with President Trump. He is literally getting all of these charges against him. One, an accusation of rape. The woman couldn't tell you when it happened, what day, if there were witnesses, what she was wearing, what actually happened. And they're giving her all this money and they're calling him a rapist. And then they turn around and because he said his property was worth more, now they're giving that. Every one of us has hoped our property was worth more when we're selling something. That's called the open market or whatever. And then they're calling him an insurrectionist and using the Constitution, and yet he's never been charged. No one's been charged with insurrection. But they've changed it, and this is all happening to a former president. Why would you be any different? Why would you be any different? Why would any of us expect to have a fair justice system or society to be fair to us? I think the most terrifying thing, and mark my words, people, is a woman who doesn't give a shoot about what other people think. And they stand on their morals and they stand on their beliefs and they stand and talk freely with boldness. And that is terrifying to the people who are attacking and trying to destroy anyone who is like that, because you should be terrified. A woman who doesn't care what you think, or a man who will stand on what they believe with boldness, that should scare you, because nothing you do to them will stop them. And you can censor them, you can censure them, you can do anything, but they still have their strong belief, and they've got the receipts for what they believe in. And that is something that our community needs to grasp and understand. It can be any one of them anytime.
All I know is freedom comes from knowing who you are and not being afraid, and living out what you believe,
Right.
and sticking with the truth. If you stick with the truth, you will eventually come out on top, whether in this life or the next. If you know who you are and you stick with what you know to be right,
It's true.
let earth and hell combine against you. It'll be okay.
Well,
In the end, at least you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror and know that, and be able to sleep at night.
the main job is you want to, especially in the education system, is you want to pass forward a safe system with morals so that when your children go there, they don't get abused, or your grandchildren. That's the main job. You just want to protect them.
Right.
And if you have to, eat a dump truck of poo to get that done, you do that because it's for your kids.
Everything that we are doing right
image.
now, we have to. I don't see it as an option not to speak up and not to say, because everything we hold dear stands in the balance. Our faith, our family, our freedom, our children, and their future.
Our future.
Everything hangs on what we do now or what we don't do. And to me, we don't really have a choice.
We don't. Well, I mean, let's look at this. The big fight of the last, 5 years has been this: everybody can be a trans whatever, right? And that is internationally, that's collapsing. Europe is saying, oh, we leaned into that too hard. In America, I'll bet within the next year, they're going to be telling doctors, don't do that. And I'll bet 5 years from now, we're going to see lawsuits that are going to cripple our healthcare system.
Maybe.
Oh.
We are. I would like to think that the pendulum would swing back the other direction, because it's gone so far,
Yeah.
right? How much further can it go?
I'm concerned
at this
about the
point?
pendulum because I'm
Yeah.
afraid of a extreme right wing as well. We've seen that play out in the past. It worked out good for us. But I would like to be a person that speaks to stop the pendulum and leave it there.
Right.
Because we've
if
seen
there
what
was a middle.
because
Yeah.
the right does
Yeah.
the same thing.
The Constitution was the original middle.
Yeah.
That was where they came
Not just
together.
was, it still is.
Right.
Well-
Well, they say it's extreme now, but that was the
Up until
original
the-
negotiated middle.
Up until the 14th or 15th Amendment. I think after that, it gets kind of hazy.
Well, it's people that
But we
create
can
business
make a cutout for the
governments.
19th if you own property and stuff. But
that people are imperfect, and that's the problem. And we have a divinely inspired nation. We had a divinely inspired document. This is God's country, and I think when it all stands up, if you cannot have a moral people, and that's where it's gone. It's by design. I don't know if it's the devil. I don't know if it's Marxist ideals. I don't know how long it's been going on. I mean, he can take us back to history that will literally make your eyes glow over or just glaze over.
it
No
constantly
offense.
happens. It happens in
But-
every civilization.
We are
And
in a
it-
fight.
all the
of-
signs.
pattern.
We are in a fight of good and evil. It's not right and left anymore.
Right.
Because the things you're talking about, you're protecting kids from, should be common sense on the most simple scale.
Right. When we leave biological reality, we have no solid ground left to stand on.
None. Now, to get onto this, so
Well, hold on. I want to go back to the transgender thing. I was saying I predict that we're going to see a lot of claims against doctors within 5 to 10 years
I do too.
of young ladies, or young men that are looking down and saying, look, I was 12, I was 13. My parent was she was a kooky liberal woman. So I was the talk of the Tea Party. So she leaned into it. I hoped that your Hippocratic oath would stand between me and harm.
You would be the common sense.
But-
You would think.
I think
yeah,
we're going to
but-
see it because we're starting to see trickle of them come
Yeah.
down in Europe and a few here in the U.S.
Right.
So what happens when, and it's not a lot of kids, but
Not yet.
lifelong change is very expensive, and pretty soon doctors who do that will have a harder time finding liability insurance and things like that.
This is why they've tried to take over multiple systems.
Yeah.
Not just one. They've tried to take over the medical system and the judicial system so that they can protect their agenda at every level.
Oh,
Yes,
look at
so-
COVID. Look at COVID.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have all these people now, and the CDC has to admit all the reaction from COVID vaccine. And now they're like, well, we were wrong, but we're perfecting it. Wait a second. You're killing people.
Yeah.
And what your principles and what you said, it was the unvaccinated that were the problem. And yet it was the vaccine was causing these problems. And if people, I have seen complaints come out, like he's saying, where doctors have left because they're like, wait a minute, I've got patients complaining to me now because we're seeing that these drugs, hormonal therapy, is causing cancer, infertility. And if you say
non-development,
anything, you're
permanent.
canceled.
Or-
And these people are coming to them now that they're older and they're in love with someone and they want to have a child, regardless what their gender was.
Or they just want to
And now they
express that love. They don't even have to pursue having a child, but it'll leave them.
This is what doctors are saying, though.
Yeah.
Their actual clients are coming to them now, and they have to leave the practice because they're disgusted and they feel terrible because they're not, out of hundreds of kids that come into some of these offices, they'll turn away 2.
Right.
Right.
So those that are trying to be honest and do what's right, because they're going to be canceled if they say something
Yes.
or they do get canceled, they leave.
They just leave
Right?
quietly.
But those that don't leave, they just double down on there's nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
It's good for kids. And judges also, like, you may have judges that are saying, you can't do this to kids. That's not good. But then you have other judges that are saying, if you don't affirm your child, we're taking your child
Right.
away. Right. So
Right.
you've got good and bad in all the systems, right? You can't make a blanket statement about all teachers are bad or all this,
All doctors,
all
all-
parents are good. Like, there are bad apples
Everywhere.
wherever you go. That's human nature. It gets back to what the founders talked about, right? They understood human nature, and that's why they made laws the way they did, and specifically to rein in government that gets too powerful and too big for its britches and then becomes tyrannical.
Yeah,
Well,
but-
and I think just to go to this point that Natalie's making, we have systems, I think, that get in the way of justice, and yet we claim that we have a justice system,
That's
a
so
justice-oriented system. So, there have been people who've been harmed by abortions, right, by their
Yeah.
doctors, but obviously these people are, these abortion doctors are still in business. If anything, they just learn to hide behind the law
Better at hiding.
and behind that administrative state that makes it daunting for people to take action, like meaningful legal action. And so I see where you're getting at with, this idea that, we're going to have this big rash of lawsuits. But people have been saying that about education for years. Why aren't we suing the schools? Why aren't we suing the school districts? Well, have you ever just tried making a complaint about, recess at your local school?
It's true. And you're told to go to the school board. And I've watched your school board meetings. And when you guys, as the school
Dysfunctional.
board, are trying to get to the bottom of some of these problems, it's bureaucrats you're going to.
Right.
Yes.
And bureaucrats, ladies and gentlemen, has been my jihad, I should say, our jihad regarding every system of our government. People who are unelected making decisions where the electeds who are accountable for their decisions actually can't call them out because no one has an explanation. They are going to wait till that person is out of office because they last longer than any elected does. Their job is almost impossible to fire. Once they, and this isn't just at the school board, this is every branch of government from local to national, and it is bureaucrats that are running this country. It is a bureaucrat that shut our country's economy down through COVID and then fed us this crap. And he did it, Fauci did it. 1 week it was one thing, the next week is another. All in the name of our lives, our livelihood, our kids. And so
Well, he is the
we
science.
have to rein it in. We have to rein it in. And this, I'm going to get to comments really quickly because
Yeah,
we're
we'll do
gonna-
a comment.
really quickly, I want to get this out. David Weiss, he's the best. He was Jared's original
Mhm.
Actually,
Yes.
he didn't talk so much, so
Mhm.
he's having to deal with someone who never shuts up. So we miss you.
What?
We really miss you, David. Jared especially. He says you're such a square.
I miss Floyd.
And then David said the legal system can only be this frivolous within a fiat community economy. There are better ways. There may have been good Germans in the SS, but the institution nullified their character.
Right.
That is absolute.
The system.
As we got started and we talked about arrows, we'll go up. They're saying, Andrew Badger said that, well, it's you that's taking all the arrows. And then he had a question regarding campaign donations made to you by
Gail Miller.
Gail Miller. Now, I don't, to Monica.
No.
No, there have been no donations to me from Gail Miller.
Okay,
I'm
so-
going to disavow
Is
any
that
sort
Larry
of rumor.
Miller's ex?
Widow.
No, but
yeah.
she,
Or-
she
yeah,
has
said it.
donated. She has donated a lot to my opponent.
Yes.
Who's your opponent?
Her name is Bollinger.
Okay, can we just sit down for 1 second? Accusations like that, I in a political view, accusations like that against a candidate, when you have a candidacy and you are trying to run and you are running in a race that is very difficult, you need money. And you also, money's going to get you where you need to be. And I have a hard time. I'm not one of those people that look at somebody's donation roster and go, oh, well, so-and-so donated to so-and-so, that means they're bought and paid for. Because I just don't think that way. I know a lot of people do. But then on the other hand, when you have somebody that is very strong on what they believe and you get someone that disagrees with you donating, I don't know, I think that's kind of cool because you're like, okay, pay for me to tromp all over your ideals. That's your money. But when you're accusing someone, Monica's been accused of taking money, according to Andrew Badger. She didn't.
He might have gotten it
He
the
just
details
got
wrong.
mixed up.
I think he might have gotten mixed up.
could
if
be,
that's
or
what
he
he
might
said. Yeah.
have you mixed up with the Bollinger.
with the
Oh,
competitor
I would
of
hope not. Yeah.
It could be, but
Natalie Cline.
Yeah, no, it's what's interesting to see with the campaign donations and everything like that is how quickly Cox and the lieutenant governor made it very public. I think it's any pretext will do. I think they were probably already intending to donate to whoever Natalie was running against, because Natalie's been very open about her criticism of Cox, pointing out that he was for DEI before he was against it. It is an
Mhm.
election year. This is where politicians who have moved left progressively now are shifting right suddenly. So you have to go a little bit further back in the news cycle than what the last 2 months, 3 months,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And you have to see that, Natalie's been, as she's mentioned before, extremely consistent. Her policy stances have never changed. It's always been to protect kids and faith, family, and freedom, and to protect from exploitation, to protect from the system taking priority over the individuals that supposedly that system exists to protect. And we all know that's really not the case. The system's out of control.
yes.
But yeah, so I just, I think it's very interesting to watch all these, what I would call edu-establishment people or organizations who are like, oh, let's donate to Natalie's, opponent. Of course. That's
Well, and
That's
they
where you're
only
gonna-
stand to
yeah.
win if they take your children. Say you're wealthy, and you get all those plebes children to kind of get dumbed down and made into sheep. Your progeny doesn't have competition.
right.
They have employees and minions. They don't have competition, and that's why I think the wealthy enjoy this system that we're in. We interviewed you 3 years ago, the first time you were on. The only thing that has changed is you've probably learned more about what is actually going on. But your message is the same. It's been the same. I've followed you since we interviewed you, and it's just been the same. It's been consistent. So you're right on that.
Mm-hmm.
First
And you-
time I
you
chatted
live by
with you
example.
was 2 months ago, 3 months ago. And you jumped on board saying, I am going to be a bolster with Natalie.
Yeah.
You essentially ran on that you're going to get two people to fight for.
Right. So you believe in what she's fighting for, and you see what's
Right.
happening, and you can only contribute to that school board.
Well, it's why I joined the fight, because I was inspired. I felt like Natalie was the only person who was speaking very honestly and transparently. She wasn't representing the system to us. She was telling us how the system is actually working against us. She wasn't defending it.
No.
And yet, you know, you could say she's
brought light to the darkness.
Right. But a lot of people get into these political positions and they start to get, I think, kind of absorbed by it. You know, that's the system wants to win you over.
Yeah.
And to take your loyalties from the people that you're supposed to represent and make your loyalties to the system that now you're a part of.
Exactly.
Right? Absolutely. So, you know, again, you know, Natalie is one member on a board of 15. She is not 1/15 of a board, which is what they want her to think she is. And that's, you know, this collectivist conformist mindset.
And she represents how many thousands are in your district?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think there was 90,000
So
that voted for me the first time. So that's,
And then
now
you
it's about
represent
So you gotta-
two-thirds of the
everyone.
vote.
About
You-
250.
So 250,000.
300,000.
So she's not one of 15. She's 250,000 people.
Yeah.
Well, if 90,000
voice.
voted for you, and you've got to consider probably 60,000 on the opposing side, and then what, 18
Lots that
million
didn't.
who stayed at home
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
didn't know that there was a vote going on. I mean, seriously.
Right. A school district a state board district covers several House and Senate districts.
Yeah.
Like it's a
And
very
you
large
sit in the
district.
south end of Salt Lake, right?
Southwest part of the Salt Lake
Yeah,
Valley.
so
Mhm.
Harriman and
Harriman,
Riverton and
South
all that,
Jordan,
which is
Bluffdale.
traditionally was a conservative area, but it is, I think it's changing just because
it's
of
grown
the
ridiculously.
demographics are changing there. You know, it's getting, I don't know, taxis and salad bars. I don't know what Democrats do, but anyways, you know,
I like salad bars.
I don't know, massages by
I'm embarrassed
Gary.
to say that I didn't even care or know about the school board when I would go vote. And I've always voted. My parents have been, I remember going to vote with them when I was very young. It was just, my father was a veteran and my mother is America loving, you know, good, wholesome woman and conservative, and would take me to the ballots with her. And that's something I always done. But the school board seat or my local school board, it wasn't until my kids got in school that I even started to pay attention. And yet every time we paid property taxes, 75% of that went to a school board
Yes.
or to the
Yes.
school district.
It is.
It's
a
and which
huge
makes
investment.
it political because anything that taxpayer dollars pay for is inherently political,
Well-
whether we want it to be.
Well, and what
or
they're
not.
teaching, because anyone that tells me, oh, politics, I'm not into politics. Well, I'm sorry. Everything in your life has some politics to it,
Right?
because
Yes.
it is the very, very foundation that you have to live every single day by how much your gas is, how much your interest rates are, can you afford anything, the DEI stuff, how much you're facing in that. If you have a job, how do you function in your job if you have to not talk about Chick-fil-A, for
Politics
example,
controls
because
your
it
life.
offends people.
So if you don't want to be political or get involved or get educated on politics, all you're doing is saying I'm okay with somebody else running my life.
Or you're walking through a lawn
Wasn't it-
minefield, like a minefield.
Yes.
Wasn't it
Yeah.
Plato that said you may not be interested in politics, but your neighbors are, and politics is interested in you, or something like that?
Sure. Well,
Right.
and you know, your politics are the manifestation, I believe, of your religious beliefs. And so the way your moral compass, what you inherently feel is right or wrong,
Mhm.
that's going to play out in your political involvement. And, you know, I think we have a lot of people who feel like politics is almost like kind of a dirty thing. Oh,
Our parents taught us not to talk
It's
about
Yeah.
politics and
Kind of a
religion.
dirty thing.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
Maybe it's
It
gotten
They
that
feel
way.
like it's kind of a dirty
It
thing.
is a dirty thing, but at the same
Oh,
time, it's I think we have there are politicians and there are statesmen. And I feel like it's that statesman end of politics that we should be aspiring to. In other words, what are the principles of the Enlightenment? What are the principles of of our purpose here on earth. You know, I love the idea of inalienable rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, property. Those things are not, that's politics, right? But it's also, I believe, religious.
It's inspired by the very foundation of the 10 Commandments.
Yes.
It's basically giving society rules that to live by so that we can all live together
Peacefully.
Yeah. But what it's done is it's been just, it's demoralizing. I mean, I always ask, how does a Democrat rationalize celebrating abortion?
Read Jonathan Haidt, The Righteous Mind.
Okay,
That's how you know.
but when you look at the rationalizations you have to go to and the backflips in your mind you have to go to, I will call out Donald Trump and his bad behavior with women, and I don't agree with it at all. But if his policies are right and they're constitutional and holding to that, it's not my job to judge that. I mean, I don't care if he writes mean tweets. I'm not reading them. But it's no different with a Democrat. If you're going to tell me that you're a good religious person and you believe in this, and then your policies say the opposite,
Okay.
that to me is wrong.
Okay, so this is where I think that disconnect comes, where they can say they believe one thing, but then they do a different thing in their position as a policymaker, right? Is because they're told that they represent all of the people in their district, and they have to make policies that represent them all. Well, if you have such a polarized constituency that are on completely opposite ends of things, you cannot please them all. That's why when you run, the founders made it so there is no religious test in order to hold office, right? And that's so that we can live by our convictions. Yeah. And we can say, you know what, as a candidate, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to tell people, this is what I believe in. Yeah. And this is what I will fight for. If this is what you believe in and what you want me to fight for, if you agree with this, then vote for me. If you don't vote for me. And that's how you let the people decide on their representative. You give them an honest view of who you are and what you stand for and will fight for. And if the majority votes for you, then that majority is who you represent.
You've just described what
then you can vote your conscience
campaign should be.
Yes.
Right.
But what you see now is people saying, this is who I am.
Man, imagine
being me. And then I turn into everybody's guy.
Right.
And now I'm going to give up this belief and this belief because money and power corrupt.
Yes,
absolutely.
What do you think it was like being on a school board in 1950? I'll bet it was amazing. Come in and say, all right,
did they have school boards?
We want all males to be able to, I don't know, probably, but we want all males to be able to run a mile in 20 minutes. And we want them to be able to read this much, males and females. And we want them to be able to do this. And it was academic and kind of health, because back then,
PE.
There was a lot of focus.
For life.
There was a lot of focus on health. And I think it was to burn energy off them 15-year-old boys.
Well, it makes you can learn better if you've gone out there and gotten some
you're
exercise,
teaching them life choices that they should make so they live healthy adults and live longer and healthier lives. I mean, it's smart to have that. Can I just jump in here and let everybody know that our phone is open? And I just want to say hi to Lori Higgins, who is the woman that I met in my precinct, she has posted the rated books on. You can see it in the chat. I would love you to call in, Lori. I know that when I told you through the precinct that we were inviting these ladies on, that you have done a ton of work and just throwing out explicit books in Twill and make sure our county knows.
We'll go on to that.
Give us a call.
Books. We'll pull it up.
Give us a call if you're able to. The phone number is 385-899-2134 and talk to our great producer Dwayne.
And our producer asked that we give a shout out real quick again to KMMU Main Street Media Utah, and we are
live on Rumble, X, YouTube, KMMU.org, and on Facebook at Political Head Trauma. So if you do go to KMMU.org and you hit and subscribe there, you will not only get updates on our show and you'll get to see our archive of all our shows, but you also get to see the other shows that have just joined the media group who is supporting truth. And the whole goal of this group is to have interviews with people people who are wanting your vote, who have maybe taken some arrows, maybe who deserve, maybe who do not. But our goal is to get to truth. That's what we want. And whether it's good or bad, we just want you to get the truth. And so rather than project and wonder, we're asking. And that's what we want from all of you. An educated populace, like I always say, gives our community better representation.
Just not an overly educated, talking to you purple-haired graduate.
David Weiss said that he said all my Natalie comments get deleted on KSL threads because I make pro comments.
Shocker.
And he also said if George Soros would be the first guy I hit up for campaign donations if I was legal. And what's funny is I feel the same way. I'm going to go to the people who hate me. I'll take their money and I will change it for good because that's what they've been doing. This is so huge. They've taken our money to literally destroy us. Our way of life, our communities, our economy, our world stage stance, like where we are. Our own government has used our money to make us weaker and better off.
Oh, yeah. Well, you look at what we pay, right? And I think I've mentioned this before, like 51% of state income tax revenue goes to higher ed and to the K-12 system. 51%. $7.3 billion. That's what our education system costs us. Public ed, just public ed. This is K through 12 again. And actually they're bumping it down lower to pre-K. But, we are spending astronomical amounts of money on what?
Yeah, what are the results?
What are the results? Well, if you just go by the state assessments, those have been tanking, and they blame it on COVID, but the scores were already trending down pre-COVID.
Oh yeah,
and now they're redesigning the system, the accountability system for public ed, so that
to obfuscate,
to kind of like hide, the performance of these schools, and of course the students within them, and so they don't want you to think there's a problem. So they're saying, oh, look, we're going to start, assessing kids on their social emotional skills, their social emotional attitudes, their values, and their beliefs. And those will be part of the indicators, that we will take. And so now it's like this watered down bar chart instead of a number that parents can look at and say,
the bar charts.
Subjective instead of objective.
They're showing the school board. Now let's get into. I do remember mentioning when there was the State of the Union by Governor Herbert, and he said we've spent $6 billion and we've seen graduation rates up by 11% over the decade. And I went, why is everybody clapping? 11% after $6 billion? What?
Well, graduation rates, they want them higher. But when, again, going back to like my kids' high school, 10% of kids in that school are proficient in math.
I was going to say,
graduating.
You want the graduation rates up to 100.
The graduation rate does not tell you anything.
All I need is a printer.
It just means that they're letting everybody go through, no child left behind, right? But child, very few kids are reading at grade level when they graduate.
Their math skills.
See me up there in my square hat.
And they've learned no adulting skills like how to balance a checkbook, or how to watch not the checkbooks exist.
Easy. You don't have good slaves if they learn that.
How do you purchase a mortgage? What does interest rates mean? What does your credit score mean? I mean, they're not learning any of this. How do you change a tire on the highway? These things that were taught years ago that were life lessons. So even a kid who skated by at graduation could still have a skill and could still provide for themselves and excel. Now it's like, let's get them through graduation, and they're not a problem anymore.
We do have a caller. We're going to bring her in. But I just want to say, I would like to do that. I'll get me a square hat and the robe, and I'll go up there and Mongo comes stumbling up and puddle of drool along the stage, and I hand him his piece of paper, and Mongo stumbles down the stairs.
Okay.